The Poet Speaks podcast is sponsored by the Poetry Lab. Poetry Lab partners attend a monthly workshop led by a teaching artist who represents a fresh new voice in the writing world. The goal, now more than ever, is to hold space for poets to write, read, and craft their learning journeys in a supportive community. And it's only $35 a month. Sign up at thepoetrylab.com/lab partners. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome back to the Poet Speaks podcast, the #1 spoken word podcast in the world. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. So today we have a very, very, very special guest. All right. This person, he's an artist and poet based in South Florida. He is continually working and writing to create a better place for all of us to live. Please welcome to the show, icon303. Icon, how are you?
Good. I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I saw some of your work on Instagram. You have a very large following on Instagram, and I was very impressed and very intrigued by what you were doing. So I was like, let's get him on the show. So let's first off, we like to always kind of take it back a bit with all of our guests. Where are you from? Where is your location right now? And what are you currently doing with your platform?
Okay. So I am originally from a very small town in upstate New York. Little blip on the radar. And I moved out of there about 8 years ago down here to South Florida. Um, and I've been all over here, South Florida, up and down Miami to Delray to Margate to Pompano to everywhere. Um, and what I do with my platform is I believe it's our responsibility as artists to speak up when the time is to speak up. Whether that be shedding light to somebody else's struggles or to your own. Um, and I feel like a lot of the problems in the world today come from people not speaking up. So my platform, which has been my whole life, is to just get myself in trouble for what I say.
You were really deep there. Then you're like, get in trouble for what I say. I like that. So a little rebellious spirit. Yeah, a little bit of a rebellious spirit. So how about we start? I'm so curious. So Florida, so you're Florida now, that's your stomping grounds. That's where you're living out of Florida. Tell me, what is in terms of, let's say, poetry, spoken word poetry, what is Florida like for those that don't know? We all, obviously, everyone knows about Miami. Everyone knows about Miami. That's the hot spot, right? But
Yeah.
what, with your area, what is poetry like? What do you see for spoken word poetry?
Honestly, where I'm from as compared to here is completely different, right? So my hometown, single blinking red light, right? If I wanted to do spoken word, I would have to drive like 2 hours away, like no joke, in a snowstorm, uphill both ways with no shoes on to get to some place to do anything poetry. And so down here, it's like, I have anywhere at my fingertips to be able to go, perform at, whether that be drive 2 hours into Miami, which God knows nobody wants to do, or Fort Lauderdale or West Palm Beach or anywhere in between those. There's 20 cities in between each one of those. So um, I can literally any night of the week get up and go do poetry if I want to.
That's what's up. Wow. So would you say it's like a very bustling with the spoken word poetry? A lot of folks out there connecting.
Obviously, I mean, there's probably some other places in the country that are probably better or more equipped for spoken word poetry, but I mean, it has its own scene here for sure.
Absolutely. So let's get into, I think, well, so many people are wondering, the name icon303. Tell me, where did that come from and what does it mean for you? That name icon303. When you see that, you're like, it definitely causes some, whoa, icon is definitely a name that catches your eye and your ear. So tell us, where'd that name come from?
So there's a layman's answer and a deeper answer. So the layman's answer is it was an old graffiti tag name of mine.
Mm.
And being in a small town growing up, if I wanted to do graffiti, if I wanted to do any sort of street art like that, I would have to constantly change my name. And so I went through 10 different tag names before I got to Icon and then later Icon 303. Um, and I've always loved all art. So no matter what I do, I always want to bring the aspects of what I love into it. And one of the ways of doing that is writing under my tag name.
Mm.
Um, the deeper answer is it's a little bit of a play on words, right? So I was a troublemaker growing up. I do have a little bit of a criminal record, and so it's a way of transforming myself in one name, right? You have I con
Ah,
convict. And then I've changed things into icon, becoming somebody to look up to from that. And then 303 is a number play on duality. So you can't have one without the other. You can't have the I without the con. You can't have the icon without the convict. So it's all a play on that.
wow. Okay. I would have never guessed that actually, coming from just reading that off the bat. Okay. Wow. So I'm curious, because you talk about that duality happening. It's such a play on words. For you, how does that kind of transform, or kind of more so, how does that now directly impact you're kind of putting on this pseudonym, this kind of identity when you do your art now? How does that translate into your art now as you're making your art, having that kind of that kind of now almost like alter ego, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because it's an alter ego that I've kind of adopted into being just my regular ego. I don't there's a handful of people that actually call me by my real name. Maybe 5, 6 people. And I like it, I prefer it like that. So but it also gives me, not necessarily freedom or comfort, because I've always been very comfortable saying whatever I want whenever I want, regardless of whoever is hurt by it or felt wrong by it. So not necessarily the freedom or comfort, but maybe I don't know how to say it. Maybe the veil helps being creative from an unbiased standpoint, I guess.
Creative from an
Where
unbiased standpoint. Okay.
it's like you can close your eyes and zone out everything you know from your past. You can close your eyes and forget about who you are in this particular world and just write from a very unbiased, pure place, or create from a very pure place.
Oh, that's very interesting. Creating and writing from an unbiased place. No, that's a very interesting concept. Oh, I can dig that. No, I like that a lot. So tell me a little bit about, obviously you have a very colorful past, interesting history. Tell I'm curious how what jumped you into spoken word? When you talk about spoken word, you're definitely talking about someone that loves to be on stage. You seem like such a kind of a chill, reserved individual as we're talking now, but I've seen your performances. It's a much different beast, right? So tell how what got you interested in spoken word? How did you kind of fall into the path of poetry?
Well, that's a great question because I was afraid to get on stage for the longest time.
Wow,
I
okay.
I never in a million years wanted to ever be on a stage in front of people, but I've always wrote. I've always wrote poetry, whether it be songs, lyrics, whatever the case may be, ever since I was very young. And so the poetry, the art, the creation was always there. I just never had that avenue, or I never thought I was going to leave my small town, so I didn't have any aspirations to go get up on stage because I never thought it was a possibility. Um, and then once I got down here, a mutual friend of actually ours, Ryan Bynack, um, he does host open mics all over the world, or all over South Florida, and offered me to come fill in a spot. And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, come on, your first book's about to come out. And I'm like, all right. And so then that was the jump into it right there, Ryan Bynack.
So I was a jump into it. How many years ago was that?
About 7 or 8 now.
7 or 8 years ago. Wow. Okay. So for you, kind of jumping into it, What did you, because you had said at first it was just kind of a bit of a stage, just a whole new kind of experience, maybe that stage fright. What kind of broke that off for you to be able to fully be like, hey, I can do this thing fully on stage. I can come out, be who I want to be on stage. What was that kind of breaking through moment for you?
Um, I didn't, I you could do it here and be faceless.
Hmm. Mm.
I would much rather go up on stage in front of a million strangers than to sit and and read poetry to, like, let's say my girlfriend, for example.
Mm.
Like, that terrifies me. I can't do it. When I recite things or make a video or anything like that, she can't be in the house because she can't even hear
Wow.
me because it shuts me down. But if I but it's a room full of strangers, I don't care what they think.
Really?
They,
Wow.
they,
What's
they
up
don't
with that?
their judgment of me is that's their judgment. I can't.
Mm.
I'm a very like everybody is their own person, and I respect that. So I mean, if somebody has an opinion of me, they can have an opinion of me. It just doesn't affect me.
Mm. See, that's a really interesting concept. So people close in your life, you don't necessarily have that creative, like you said earlier, that creative unbiasedness where you want to share your art. But random people that you've never met, you have all the ability and freedom to share everything with them off the top, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's a very kind of interesting.
I definitely share like everybody in my life that calls me by my real name. Um, they know I'm a poet. They know everything I do. I send them poetry. I give them gifts that's poetry. But for the most part, I can't perform it in front of them. Like if I'm going to do an open mic, it's like you guys can't be there.
Wow. Oh my
If I
God.
see
Wow.
you in the crowd, I'm gonna shut down.
Wow. Wow. That's something, huh? That's really something. It's interesting. But you know what? You're not the first person I've ever met that has said that. I remember I was talking to, she's a relatively well-known poet in Nigeria, and she said the same thing. She to this day, even with all the success she's had, nope, never inviting my mom to a show. Just not gonna do it. I find that just so fascinating, yeah. I find that really fascinating. No.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I think it's more like if I see them cry while I'm on stage or something,
Yeah.
it's gonna make me cry. You know what I'm
Ah,
saying? Like,
yeah.
or if I see them freaking out, it's gonna make me freak out. And it's like I can't. I got to be in like work mode.
Yeah, you got to be in professional mode. Nah, I feel that. I definitely feel that. No, that's true stuff. So you have kind of uh going through your career now, you have a couple self-published books. One especially had caught my eye. It's called Paradise Haiku Shu. So you have it described as an interesting look at the beauty of Japan, although from South Florida. So tell us, you've kind of, you've built a very large following with your poetry, as well as you've done a lot of self-published chapbooks. Tell us about this one in particular, looking at the beauty of Japan through South Florida. How does one do that? How does that work? What does that look like? And tell us the name, Paradise
I've
Haiku Shu.
so I guess haikushu means a collection of haiku. Um, and so I am not fluent in Japanese. But I've always loved Japanese culture, history. Ever since I was a little kid, I think Ninja Turtles really started getting me into it because they were ninjas, and then that set me off on my whole like nerd path of jumping into like the history of that and like what that meant for feudal Japan and how they became into the modernization of Japan and so I've always really loved it. I've always obviously in poetry I've always really respected haikus. Or sorry, haiku, and and that so I did this more as an homage. And so if somebody in academia were to read these, they would scoff at it and probably throw it in the trash can. But this was like a side project from before Oracle of Radical Truths and Die Poor Live Forever, that I got kind of lost, back on my phone somewhere. And I got finished with all of, I think, 4 or 5 more books. And then I was like, you know what? I don't have anything to write. I was like, what do I do? I was like, well, I got that a haiku book I could finish. Like, and so I had the cover already designed out. I had the idea already laid out in my head. So I just had to finish it and put it out.
Hmm. Wow, wow, wow. So this book is all completely self-published, back to front. You did all the publishing yourself.
Hmm.
Wow, wow.
And yeah, they all go under the banner of Coyote Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is Ryan Bynak's publishing company. That is basically how my books all started.
Mm.
Um, and and so they're all under that banner for him. To always get that light out there. Um, and yeah. So it was just a little fun little side project to put out.
Nice, nice, nice. So for you, you do like a mix of, you also do like some videos, almost like poem music videos for some of your work. You just had a recent one that I saw on Instagram. For you, what does that kind of look like? Why do you and what do you want to do with like mixing the video and the poetry into one thing? Because you have a lot of poets that are always trying to find like new ways to get their poetry out outside of just the words, right? So for you, what does it mean for you to be able to like produce like a whole project with the visuals, like almost like a music video? Why do you do that, and what does that kind of mean for you to do that?
It's again, it's another way to draw a focus to an issue that I think is important. Little Bedbird was wrote about anybody that's struggling. That was wrote for somebody that just needed to be believed in. And I feel like that's an easy tie-in to poverty and homelessness. Uh, where and the big problem in America is the wealth gap, where I myself have been homeless. I myself have had to sleep under a bridge to survive the weather around me to make it to the next day. So I know what that's like, and it breaks my heart seeing people struggling. So whatever I can do, and if I only have my words or my creativity to be able to help, then I'm gonna do what I can. And so the first two were released, featuring a homeless man, and then other ones are gonna come featuring other issues.
Okay. What are you looking at in terms of the other issues that you think you're gonna eventually explore, besides obviously poverty, homelessness?
Anything and everything, honestly, and that's what I believe. We as artists, that's our job. Our focus is to document what is going on in the world, um, from ways that other people can't. Um, and so, I've started tackling police brutality and racism with Oracle of Radical Truths Part One and Two. I think it's the only book that I know of that lists everybody that I could find that was killed by police in the last 20 years, um, and where they were from and what the situation was. And I go into details and I leave it with poetry and so there's going to be that. There's going to be domestic violence. I was a child, grew up watching my mom get beat by an alcoholic. So there's that. There's drug addiction. There's anything that you can think of that's ugly and hard to face. I don't mind facing it. I probably already have.
Mm. Where do you think for you, where do you think that kind of fearlessness comes in your writing? You know, you have a lot of people, no matter who it is, a lot of people do want to tackle those issues, but some people keep it at a bayside in terms of their writing. Some people they find, let's say, freedom to really talk about those issues through writing. For you, where do you think that kind of inspiration comes from? Where do you pull that out from to be able to truly like tackle some of those issues and really give your heart to it and through your poetry?
And this comes from just having just a crazy life up until now. My last 8 or 9 years have been very quiet and calm, and nothing's really happened too bad. And prior to that, it was chaos, and so going through that, you learn that No, I mean, somebody could come and kill you, but the likelihood of that happening is like slim to none. So like
Knock
for
on wood.
most
I hope
people,
not.
for yeah, for most people, nobody's gonna come kill you. So you shouldn't be afraid to say whatever it is on your mind. If you see something that pisses you off, say it. It's a way to make a better world for everybody, is to let everybody know the boundaries. And those boundaries are different for everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very interesting way to look at things. So for you, what would you say is your biggest inspiration to write your poetry, especially these days? Where does your biggest inspiration to write come from? A person, place, thing. Where is it coming from for you these days?
It comes from a place of mortality, honestly. We, as artists and writers and poets and creators, have found a way to. We found the fountain of youth, if you will. We found immortality. Um, and by assigning an ISBN number to your book then sits in the Library of Congress until the end of time. So it's a way that I can never leave my loved ones. No matter what, they can go to a bookshelf after I'm dead and gone and pull a book out and be like, what would icon 303 think about this? um you know it's a way to never have to leave my kids. um it's a way to just continually set a change, or set a precedent for the remainder of history.
Hmm. Wow, wow. Those are some very deep words you said. It's we have found a fountain of youth as a way to kind of technically live forever, some immortality. Wow. I've actually never heard someone describe their spoken word like that. So that's very, very eye-opening. Kind of going more into that then. I'm so curious. For you, what do you think, because you describe it as like a fountain of youth, it's a way to really preserve your words forever. What for you has been, what for you, what really kind of challenges you to where you're like, listen, this is poetry, my words are so important? What really is giving you that kind of like oomph in your life where you're like, you're putting, assigning such a powerful task to your poetry to really live forever, for people to really look at that as some really have a great effect on people's lives? What's really, what charges you to write in that type of way?
That's a great question. I don't think I've really thought about that too much, but I first thought, I think, growing up in such a small area, you get faced with the the reality early on in life that you're not going to have much of a life, that your life is this hill and this hill and this family drama, and you don't talk to this family, and that's going to be it. And that was one of the most depressing thoughts I could have ever had. I never wanted that. I wanted more. I wanted to try the best food. I wanted to hear the best music. I want to meet the best people. I want to do the best things. So once I got over that, it was, once I got out of there, it was really like, well, now, like, now I could do anything. And if I can do anything, why not help everybody, or as many people as I possibly can before I go?
Absolutely. Wow. Very powerful. Very powerful. Um, in terms of now, now kind of a shifting a little bit, in terms of for you, what has been kind of the biggest thing? How have you created such like a large following? What would you think is the kind of, what is really, for anyone listening out there, that wants to begin spoken word poetry, how does one create such a large following for people to really support their stuff? How have you been able to do that?
So that my Instagram following really came from like early days of like social media, just like grunt work. Honestly, like it was, I would go to I would go to, like, let's say we'll go to the Poet Speaks podcast Instagram page, right? And you know that the people that follow you like poetry, right? So you go to your page and go to your followers, the people that are following you, and go follow all those people. You're going to get a percentage of those people that follow you back. Now you're going to have to go in and delete all the people that didn't follow you back. And you got to, and it's just a constant grind. And I did that for probably like a year and a half before I really started using even like hashtags. Um, and so, you start, and then you, once you get into it and you're like doing it by yourself and learning by yourself, you get kind of caught up into that social media world. You start learning things like, your videos and stuff do better when you try the new things in the Instagram algorithm, right?
Mm,
So
mhm.
when they came out with like the slides where you have 10 different photos,
Yeah.
they want you to put up as many of those type of slides as you can, and you're going to get better placement.
Mm,
It's little things like that where I just kept building and building and building. And I it started as an art Instagram. So I would go to like psychedelic art pages and follow a ton of people and just slowly just start building people.
mm. So it's like slow and steady wins the race type of thing with the social media following.
Yeah, I never wanted to be too commercialized either. I don't think
Mm,
my stuff is for the general public. Um, I wanted it definitely more of like like a cult following. That's a weird term to use, but a restaurant industry, it's a term. Just a little small following of people to know my stuff.
I'm curious then, what makes you more inclined to have the cult following as opposed to wanting a mainstream? I think this is a question a lot of artists tend to kind of maybe face at one point or another in their direction, wanting the kind of keeping the solidarity of the kind of indie audience versus going full blown, everything to the wall mainstream. What made you want that kind of more so indie following, like you said, like a cult like following? Why for you did you go that route?
So and it almost seems contradictory to what I said earlier about helping as many people as I can, and it's like, garnering as much of an audience as I can, but only wanting a few of those people. And it's just from understanding that I'm not for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I, not everybody's gonna love my poetry. Not everybody's gonna love everybody's poetry. So I know that realistically, poetry in and of itself is a niche market. Then to add into it free verse, then to add into it my craziness, like it becomes narrowed down to a very niche market. So it was just more of like the bearing the reality of the fact that I can't. That's my reality right there.
Yeah. Okay, so yours was more of a realization that, hey, you know what? Maybe this is a bit more niched what I'm doing. It's a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche. You will. Okay. Word, word. Okay. What do you think? Do you think poetry? I'm curious to pick your brain on this. Do you think poetry as a form, like we said, it is a very niche form already. Spoken word in itself is such a niche form, but so many people have a story to tell. What do you think poets can do to maybe spread the message more? Not necessarily make it mainstream, but make people more aware of poetry, saying that so many people, I think, are closet poets, and I think they truly have something to say. What do you think poets can do to make it more world renowned, more known, all those things?
Is I feel like we're in a kind of a golden day right now where everybody's creating, right? Everybody's making, and poets are really stepping up and artists are really stepping up, which is typical after really dark times. So just keep doing what we're doing, create new ways. If you've seen something done, try not to do that. Try to create something new. I just saw in a poetry group, every Monday we write poetry together. It's a beautiful group. Shout out Abby, Enid, Ryan, Sam. Love you guys. The they sent me this somebody had put up like taken letters, individual letters, and put them over like an alleyway where the sun passes. So as the day's going, this poem goes across the sidewalk on the floor. We've all talked about using a spray that repels water and making a stencil of a poem, spraying that repels water. You only see it when it rains. Um, just being very, very creative. Do whatever you can. Put it in everything, and I believe the poetry already is a little bit in everything. Music is poetry to a beat. Um, there's to a metronome, then boom, you have music. Um, so just keep doing, keep creating, keep changing. That's really the only way we can keep it alive.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. I think seeing poetry already, the oral tradition, the spoken word is in everything that we do already. It's just making sure that we can highlight that for all of us. Oh, you put some glasses on. All right. There we go. Change up the interview. But no, I like that a lot. Yes. But yeah, no, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Well, tell me a little bit about what do you think people can take away from spoken word and poetry?
It depends really. That's a great question. It depends on, I guess, their attitude going into it. Um you're going to get out of it what you take into it. You're going to get out of it what you want to get out of it. You're going to get out of it what you need to get out of it. Sometimes what you want and what you need are two different things. Um, and you're going to go to a spoken word situation and you're going to leave there with a line that sits with you for the next 10 years. Um, I do it all the time. Anytime, even if I go to just watch and not perform, I always leave there with a line that I'm like, God, I got to write that down. That was amazing, and it's gonna. I'll think about it a year later. I'll wake up one morning and be like, oh my God, that line that I heard at the stand up. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I've been to so many shows where I'm just like, oh my God, where's my phone? Where's my phone? Oh, I need to memo that down. That line was so good. That line is so good. I need to remember that tomorrow. I need to annoy people and keep saying it because it would just. I completely. I feel you on that one because it's such a good line. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Okay, so please, so I have one last question for you. Is all time Poet Speaks podcast is a question we ask every poet that comes on here. Icon303, why do you need to get your words out?
I need to get my words out because there's no place else to put them. They don't stop. It doesn't turn off. There's not a night where I get a good night's sleep and don't go to sleep and wake up thinking about writing and poetry and art and creating. Um, and so I feel like if I don't, I'll just spontaneously human combust. Like I'll just burst into flames if I don't.
Word. Okay. He's gonna burst into flames. That's why he needs to get his words out. No, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. There's nowhere else for them to go. That's a very good quote. Nowhere else for them to go. So you must get them out. All right. Well, Icon 303, this has been such a great interview thus far. I've enjoyed you dropped so many deep gems for us to really contemplate and think about. Before we wrap up, please tell us what's 2022 looking for your writing and beyond, and also where can everyone go check out all your amazing work and poetry and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, you can check out any of my stuff at www.icon303.com. Real simple. And 2022 and beyond. Just more writing. I'm working on a book of compiled short stories from my life. It's going to be released in different volumes. I always have poetry books in the canon ready to go. Um, I'm working on one of those right now. I am working on a very big art project with epoxy that I don't think I've seen really anywhere else. So I'm excited to release that. And yeah, just we're now officially less than 30 days away from my son being here. And
Congratulations.
that's the biggest thing for 2022 this year.
Ooh, congratulations. All right. So you got a lot of good stuff going on. All right. Well, thank you so much for telling us. Congratulations on the new baby and everything. Wishing you the best with that. Wishing you the best with all your upcoming projects. All right. So everyone, Icon 303, all of his work will be in the YouTube description of the YouTube channel of the Poet Speaks podcast. So check us out on YouTube to get all the links, all that good stuff for his upcoming works and everything. So Icon, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Absolutely. All right. So everyone, like I said before, check out all of Icon 303 stuff in the YouTube channel, in the description box of the YouTube video of this episode. All right. So everyone, this is the Poet Speaks podcast, and we will talk to you pretty soon. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.